Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the study session for the Mesa City Council for December the 1st. I'll note that all of our council is present. The first item on our agenda is to convene an executive session to interview 3 finalists for the city clerk position. Is there a motion to convene an executive session? Thank you, Mr. Luna, seconded by Mr. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. We will convene an e-session, after which we will return to this room to continue the city council, the study session. Well, thank you. We are now reconvening our study session, and the next item on our agenda is to provide direction on the candidates for the position of city clerk. Council, would anyone like to nominate one of the candidates to be placed on the December 8th council meeting agenda for appointment? Ms. Pillsbury.
I would like to make a motion to have Holly Mosley fill our position as clerk.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Thompson. There's been a motion made to advance Ms. Mosley to our agenda for December the 8th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Congratulations. And again, this was a very difficult decision. We have a very qualified internal and external candidates, so thank you so much for your interest. Each one of them would have been very successful in this position, and I'm sure they'll have perhaps that opportunity at a future time. The next item on our agenda is to review tonight's council meeting and the agenda for our December 8th council meeting. So let's start with the agenda for tonight. Council, is there anything on our agenda tonight that you'd like some additional information on, or anything you'd like to take off of the consent agenda? I know I had some questions. I think Mr. Brady is dealing with other matters, but Mr. Was your name Pombier? Thank you. Mr. Pombier, I'm
new here, so yes.
Will do a great job of helping us prepare for tonight. Council, anything you want to talk about on tonight's agenda? I will just, obviously, we are introducing the mobile food vendor ordinance to make some modifications to that, and we had a great presentation on that a couple of weeks ago. Given that it was Thanksgiving occurred in between then and now, I think I've just forgotten everything that happened before Thanksgiving. So if you don't mind, could we get just a recap of the high points of the changes we're making to the food truck ordinance? This is agenda item 6F. And again, we're just introducing it tonight. There'll be a public hearing on it at our next council meeting. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. All right, where did it go here? There we go. All right, Mayor and Council, here's the presentation that we presented a couple of weeks ago, so we kind of just run through that again. And
yeah, feel free to speed through it. I mean,
Sure.
I just need to be reminded, and I'd like the public, again, just to be reminded of why we're making changes and what those changes are.
Sure. The mobile food vendor license exemptions that we're going to have are basically if you're involved with a special event with the city or have an event that has been approved through the Parks and Rec Department, you will be exempt from the needing the license, the mobile food license. Also, if you have an event that's limited to 4 special events per year, and then also the annual fire inspection will be waived as well. I guess I'm in the wrong spot here.
No, you're fine. Mayor and Council, so on this particular waiver, so there's 2 major portions of the ordinance that's being amended this evening. The first deals with special events. As you'll see up on the screen, it deals with it. There's going to be an exception for mobile food units that having to get a license, so long as they only participate in a certain number of events throughout the year, so less than 4, and they're updated on their annual fire inspection if they're required to get one. If you would
Okay, so I'm sorry, let me ask a more specific question. Mr. Luna will tell us how many times do we do the Food Truck Fridays at Los Andes each year? Is that 4 times a year, or?
I think they told me 6.
About 6
They
times
used
a
to
year.
do it, they're doing it.
So-
Yeah, they changed locations. They go to Boulder Mountain
Right,
Park.
so
and
yeah.
then they do it.
Does this exception, if a food truck appears at one of those events less than 4 times a year, they're exempt, or does this exempt the event from this ordinance because they do it, let's say they do it 4 or less times a year?
Mayor, all of these changes apply specifically to mobile food units because this goes with the licensing requirements for mobile food units.
Okay, so we're not licensing the event, we're licensing the trucks at the event.
Mayor, there are licenses that are a part of like the special event license that the city does, but that is a different license than the requirements that are out there
Okay,
here.
got it. So specifically, what we're talking about tonight is the food trucks, the food trailers, the food vendors.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and so if you do that less than 4 times a year, we're not talking about you.
Yes, we're exempting you from having to get what you would otherwise have to get a license.
Okay, let me ask, if I want to have a food truck come and park in my driveway because I'm celebrating a birthday, kind of a one-off event, I'm not in the food truck venue business, I just want catering like a private event, are those vendors excluded from this?
So there's 2 separate, Mayor, there's 2 separate requirements that we're talking about tonight. So the first would be the licensing requirement. So to be exempted from the licensing requirement, just generally speaking, no matter where you would be operating in the city, would require that you be a part of special events and you do that less than 4 times per year. So that's just to exempt them from licensing. In terms of the requirements related to residential zoning areas, like you're talking about if you're going to have a graduation party at your house. That's the other major change that we're making this evening. What we currently have in our code states that a mobile food unit is not allowed to operate within 25 feet of a residential area. What we would be doing is changing our code with this amendment to make it 250 feet, which is more in line with both the state statute that deals with mobile food units, as well as in line with the model ordinance. So in terms of that, there are exceptions under there for like the individual graduation party or private party, those one-off events. There is one of the exceptions we're creating to that 250-foot requirement to allow for those, because we currently don't have that exception under our code, so that gives additional exceptions to food vendors.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long answer.
But because I think we are getting very much hung up on this 250 foot, right? 250 foot is what's in the model ordinance, and it allows us, we set it to 250 feet, but then we create all these exceptions because we know that most of the time we're going to be working with food trucks that are going to be within that 250 feet, but it gives us all kinds of exemptions for the birthday party, for the celebrations, for the food truck that's near in a strip mall that maybe is near a multifamily, which is not considered residential. So really what it is allowing us to do is set that wider perimeter than 25 feet, because the 25 feet was set, and I think the city attorney explained this last time, when we originally did this, it was thinking in terms of a brick and mortar business. That would be the setback for those. But our experience has been we don't always have the ability or get the improvements, the privacy or the privacy walls, the separation walls, and all the other improvements that would come with a certificate of occupancy if we're building a brick and mortar facility. Because they're mobile, they can just show up, and maybe we don't have, all we have is a fence, chain link fence. So what we're trying to do is give ourselves this flexibility that the 250 feet then allows either all these exceptions, or they come in and we work on a site plan and work out a solution. So I think it's been the arguments have been allowed to turn it that we're just trying to prohibit everybody from coming in. No, we create a lot of exceptions, and then you can come into 250 feet. We need to sit down, come up with a site plan that we think works with the neighbors, works with the adjacent businesses, and we go forward from there. So that's, I think, just resetting kind of the expectations here. It's not only the prohibition, it's working with us inside the 250 feet.
Julie?
And so who is that would work with them on the site plan?
Yeah.
Tim?
Right.
Tim and probably planning would
Right.
probably get
Planning.
involved, because we'd talk about, we'd want to know the distance from the residents. Are there any mitigate barriers that would help prevent noise or light pollution? And so all those things would be taken into consideration.
My recollection from the last time we had this discussion is that I'm good with all of it, but I just thought we could benefit from a little more community engagement. I know from hearing from the community, and I think Julie brought that up as well. So I'm hoping that, again, tonight, there's that opportunity. If people want to show up and take it off the consent agenda and ask hard questions, hallelujah, that's what we want. And then there's another bite at the apple at our next meeting as well. So I'm just, again, the more light we can shine on this, and the more engagement we can get from folks in the industry, and also people that don't want to have a food truck party in their backyard. We need to hear from all of those folks.
And Mayor, quickly, can I also say, and I think Tim and I haven't talked about this specifically, but it is typically our practice that when we have new ordinances like this, the enforcement initially is education. You know, we're not trying to go out there and do a gotcha. So we would initially, if there's, you know, first of all, they're going to be informed about this when they come into the city and have to get their license anyway.
Absolutely, yep.
But even if we find a violation or someone who's too close, and then again, remember, this is going to be multiple food trucks that are having continuous
Events.
So we would have those conversations and work with them initially. So we're not going to do a gotcha. It would be only after we've warned and educated that if we continue to see, you know, we're not getting cooperation, then we go to citation. Our goal is not to go to citation. Our goal is to get a plan approved or find the exception and allow this to happen.
Julie.
I definitely appreciate that. I hope that that's heard by the food truck community, that the city's wanting to work with them. I do have concerns still that we are putting out a message that we are not food truck friendly in Mesa. And I don't want all the food truck vendors to just hear, oh, Mesa just passed 250 feet from residences. We can't figure that out. We're going to just go to Gilbert, right? So I just want to make sure there is the education, there's the outreach, that we're explaining what this exactly means. In a lot of ways, it's a better, it's less restrictive, right?
Absolutely.
So I think we need to be really, really proactive on that so that we aren't hurting these small businesses, these food truck vendors. I don't think we have like a list of every single one that's ever been in the city of Mesa or anything. So it's the outreach is a little difficult, right? Sure. But I really just think, I have some other issues with this as well, but I think that is my biggest one, is that we just need to make sure that food vendors feel welcome here and that we're not doing anything that's going to restrict them even further from doing their business to support their families.
I think part of the messaging here, as Mr. Brady and Mr. Smith indicated, is that this puts us more closely in line with the state statute and with the model ordinance. So I think if anything, there's going to be less confusion because we're more like everybody else after making these changes.
Yes.
Except the only difference is we have more exclusions. We have more exceptions.
Yeah.
So the correct takeaway from this would be that Mesa is actually more friendly to food trucks than other jurisdictions, is how I see it. Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. I have some residents that would like to speak with staff relative to that. Are you willing to meet with a group of residents to talk to them and how that's going to work?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll arrange for that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mr. Freeman.
And I think I might add that this new ordinance may be subject to change in the future. I mean, we're setting some guidelines and boundaries here, but you know, as we progress through there, we might have to do some tweaks. So we're going to listen to our food truck vendors. We're going to see this other events that happen in our community, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yep.
So I fully support this ordinance change and special events. But I did have one question. I think on slide 2, you bring up and limited to 4 special events per year. Can you explain that for me?
Let's see. Oh, this is the exemption for the not needing the license. So if you're going to be a vendor that's coming in from out of state or from another town, and you're just going to come in and do 1 or 2 up to 4, you can do that without having to get a license up to 4 of those. So we'll be tracking those, and we'll know who's coming in. And if you're going to do more than 4, we'll be asking that you get the mobile food vendor license.
Okay.
But if you're just coming in for those 1 or 2 things, what we found is that some people are coming in and being told that they can't participate because the license right now takes, 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks to get the license, so they can't participate and they didn't know about the requirement. This is going to give them that exemption to have that 1 or 2 that they want to do without getting the license and allow them to participate.
And then how long does it take to get a license through your?
If you have to get the license,
Yeah,
it's
if you have
about
to get
6 to
one.
8 weeks actually, because you have to go through a background check and it goes through DPS
But
and all
see,
that.
the good news
So-
here's the headline I'm writing on this is,
Yeah.
City of Mesa opens doors to food trucks without having to get a license.
Right.
No, I get that.
So, I think people love to play it the other way, but we're creating tremendous flexibility. This is a change that says you don't even need a license if you're only coming in four times a year.
Okay. And I just want to make sure you're tracking it. And my question would be, how would you track it?
Councilmember Freeman, if you're going to need a fire inspection, we're going to mainly do it through that means, but what we're going to do whenever an event comes through, they have to give us a vendor list, so we'll track it off the vendor list. So it's either going to be through the fire inspections or it's going to be through the vendor lists. And most of the vendor lists are all we're going to really need. We'll just go off of that.
Okay. And then the event, we do education. So we find a vendor, food truck vendor that's doing more than 4 special events per year. You request to get the licensing, you do the education and warn them. What would be a fine? Is there going to be one?
$450.
Right, yeah.
I don't remember seeing that
I have
in
to go
here.
check and see. I'm not sure on that, to be honest with you, but there is a fine for that.
Okay.
But we're going to start educating at 3. So if we notice that you've got 3 events already, we're going to let you know that you've got 1 more, and after that, you need to get the license. Because we're going to recommend if you're going to do more, you're going to want to get that license process started.
Okay.
So, and that's going to take them, 6 to 8 weeks to get done. So,
And your office is monitoring that?
yes, we'll monitor that.
Okay. I heard $450 was the fine.
It could be. I'd
It
have to
shows you
check.
we don't do it very often.
Right, we
Yeah,
don't.
right,
We've not
right.
fined anybody yet.
You
so-
stopped them.
Right,
It's not our goal.
Okay.
right.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Radio.
Is this on the special events, is this part of the statute as well, or is this an addition that we're doing as a city?
Yes, Councilmember Heredia, this is something that we're doing, so it's very unique to Mesa. This is something we're carving out to try to make it easier for the vendors to come in for those 1 or 2 or 3 events that they're going to want to do, and especially if they're not aware of the ordinance.
Okay.
So this is going to be able to get them in, let them do their event, we'll educate, and then if they need a license or they think they're going to do more, then we're going to ask them to get the license and show them how to do that.
Is this a standard that other cities have that we research on, or are other neighboring cities doing this, or what's the standard that other cities do?
Councilmember Heredia, as far as that specific piece of that, no one else is doing this. We're the only ones that are offering this. Otherwise, if the license required, the other cities are making you have a license, or you can't do the event, they would show up and most likely let them know that they can't participate.
So other cities that do not have this type of exemption, you have to register before doing a party or a special event in that city?
It depends on what the regulations are, but most likely, yes. I mean, if they have a license and require you to have that license and you didn't follow that, they're going to let you know that you probably can't participate and would more likely enforce that and say, you're going to have to leave.
One way to look at this is we're giving you 4 free
Yes,
events
right.
to come to Mesa without having to go through the process. If you decide Mesa's a really good place, then we would say, probably on the 3rd time, say, hey, you probably ought to go get your license now. You've used up your 3 free passes.
Absolutely.
And then they can come, and that way they can come beyond the 4. So they really get the opportunity to come in 4 times to Mesa without ever going through the process.
Absolutely. And I just want to stress the one piece of that would be the safety piece, that if they do require the annual fire inspection, they're going to have to have either been inspected by another city within Arizona, or they're going to have to go through the Mesa Fire Department and get that exemption, or get that certification, I should say. So, and that only affects to those that are actually cooking or doing something that would invoke that requirement. So again, if you're coming in as a food vendor and you're just serving ice cream or something like that, you don't need the inspection, so you'd not have that issue. But we are making sure that if they do require an inspection, that they are getting that, and then we'll be following up with that as well, too.
I would guess the fire inspection is not a 6 to 8 week. I mean,
It is absolutely not, Mayor.
How quickly and easily can I get a fire inspection?
I can't speak for the fire department, but I know it's very quick. I don't think, I'm going to guess within a week or 2, so, but I don't want to put them on the spot.
Mr.
Yeah.
Freeman will do it at his house.
There you go. But I do know all they need to do is contact the fire department. They've got routine days that they go through that, and provided that they're not overloaded with requests, I'm sure that they'll fit them in as soon as possible.
That might be something for us to hear before we
Sure,
actually.
we can get that information.
I'm just thinking, we've all gotten panicked phone calls at the last minute.
Yeah.
There's an event, the food truck thinks that they can't come to Mesa.
Most likely, if they've had experience being a food truck in
know.
other cities, I've already
Right.
have that with them, but we can find out, Mayor, if they come to us now.
Yes.
And Mayor will accept fire inspections from other cities. So it's as long as they've had one done within the last 12 years, or 12 months, it doesn't have to be from Mesa.
And since the fire inspection is required in the state regulations, they should all be aware of that, because it's part of the model, that's part of the model code.
All right. Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
additional questions on this item, council? Any other, thank you for all the hard work on this. Any other questions about, let's stick to tonight's council meeting. Anything on the agenda for tonight that you'd like any additional information on? Hearing none, let's move. We also have a lot on the agenda for our, and we're not going to have another study session between now and next Wednesday. So this is our opportunity to talk about items on the agenda for the December 8th meeting. And there's a lot on that agenda. Mr. Brady, anything that your staff would like to point out for on the December 8th meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go to item 7A. The rezoning for the power food truck development that's taking place there. We have the rezoning that went through, it was approved 4-3 at Planning Commission. What we don't have available for this agenda is the development agreement with the Good Neighbor policy. And so we've talked with the applicant, and they've agreed that we're going to move this item off of the December 8th agenda, and it'll come back to council for introduction on January 10th. And so that would be our motion, our request is that we'll strike this from the December 8th agenda. You'll see it for introduction on the 10th. And then I think there'll be more than a few weeks from that for February 7th for consideration. So that's the plan now, January 10th introduction, February 7th. And we hope that between now and that time, we'll have the development agreement as well as the Good Neighbor policy that we'll be able to have as a package with this zoning. We remember that when we did Waypoint, we spent a lot of time on the Good Neighbor policy, so we thought it would be in our best interest to have all that in a package when council considers the zoning case.
All right. Thank you.
Having a study session before next week's city council meeting on Wednesday?
No.
Like a little short study session like we normally do? No.
Just like this.
Yeah.
Have one of these.
One of these, though. So
Yeah.
if we had something that comes up, we would have time to talk about that next Wednesday.
Well,
Right?
no.
No?
Because by the time we meet next
Okay.
Wednesday, hours before the council, or an hour before the council meeting, is just reviewing this
Okay.
agenda.
Well, if we had a question or something, though.
You can ask questions, absolutely. No. We'll do the same thing. We'll review
Okay.
this agenda
Just
one
making
more
sure.
time. Yeah, sorry, I
But I
misunderstood.
think what you just said, Mr. Brady, is it's not going to be on the agenda for the 8th.
Yeah, what I'm saying is,
I'm just saying in general.
okay, yes, we will have another discussion like
Yes.
this,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Council, other questions? I'm sorry, Mr. Brady, anything else you'd like to talk about on our December 8th meeting?
You know, Mayor, there's a couple of different items on here, but, we kind of discussed the Mesa Downtown
Right.
Improvement District. We're ready to discuss that. Are there any changes this year? I don't know if council is interested in that presentation now. I think Nancy and Jeff are here, but that's your preference. I know we're kind of running late, but
My recollection of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is not the year we're going to retool things and really redo our rate structure. The hope is to do that the following year.
right.
Correct? And so this is more just a normal year, but we're anticipating maybe taking a bigger crack at this a year from now. Did I
It says an additional
do that
5 years.
justice at all?
Mayor, council, yes, you are absolutely correct. So every 5 years, we have to renew the district in order to keep it operating. This is the 5-year renewal. There is no changes to the district assessment zones or anything to do with the district at this point.
Just a continuation of what we have.
Continuation of as is today, but it is with the expectation and understanding that we are going to be working with DMA over the course of the next several months to work with our property owners to actually be able to come back to council next year with an update to the assessment and zone structure for recommendation.
But the action the council takes next Wednesday just continues as is.
Affects no assessments at all.
The boundaries, the assessment, all those stay in place.
So to Ms. Pillsbury's point, we're approving a 5-year extension of the district. But, and so if we don't do anything, everything stays the same for 5
Right.
years.
And
But-
the best part about doing it this way is if when we try to expand or do whatever, if we don't have the votes, it doesn't make the district go away. The district stays
Okay.
status quo.
Well, but Nancy, turn to the question though, if they don't take this action, the district
Then,
goes away.
then, bye.
Yeah, so that's what, so I'll be clear, this is important. So I don't want to downplay it too much.
Yeah.
It's a continuation of what we're doing, but we need the I don't know what the right term is, continuation of
Continuation, yes.
determination, so.
Every year in May, we come before council with the current year's assessment. That would be the point at which we will come with a recommended assessment rate structure for council consideration.
Great. Mr. Thompson?
Jeff, what's the pros and cons of the approving or not approving the downtown district assessment?
Mayor and Councilmember Thompson, the one con that I can personally tell you is that my office will get a lot busier because Nancy does a lot for our downtown. From a simple perspective of clean and safe, making sure that the trash is picked up, dealing with litter, dealing with graffiti. They currently have our parking enforcement, so they're the ones out there making sure that people are parking correctly. And they also handle our new downtown ambassador program, so it's the welcoming part of it. Also, they are our marketing arm. The partnership is really strong, and I guess what I'd say, the bang for the buck that we get for our contract with them is very significant. And if we didn't have that contract, many of those services would have to be brought in-house to the city.
I guess my question is, what is that cost the city would assume if the downtown improvement district didn't exist versus what we're paying them? I'm looking for that trade-off that.
About 900,000.
The DMA's current budget is about $900,000 right now. Of that, the contract amount with the city is about $300,000 for parking, $200,000 for the
Your
cleaning
assessments.
for assessment.
No, assessments and 80,000 for parking.
So that's what our contract amount is. DMA staff is able to do that at a lower cost. I don't know what the cost would be if the city in-house those. I can only assume that the cost would be higher because.
Yeah, well, Mayor and Council, it's the theory behind business improvement districts, and Nancy's been as longer than I have, but the theory that I've always worked under with large cities and doing this in other areas is the city continues to provide its base level services like it would anywhere across the city, right? But then what the business improvement district, or the public improvement district does is then they create an assessment that has to be agreed upon by the majority of the property owners. And then they provide an enhanced level of service within that area. So they're taxing themselves, right? And frankly, I would say this to Nancy's credit, more than ever, I think I've seen that difference, right? We see the ambassadors is wonderful, right? Having them downtown, walking around their presence, the cleanliness. We rely upon them to help out with our parking garages, our parking enforcement. So because of the concentrated amount of activity in the downtown, the graffiti abatement, the litter pickup, I can't say that the city would say, oh, because this is downtown, we're going to provide a different level of service than we would at Red Mountain or somewhere else, right? That would be hard. Here, we allow the property owners to assess themselves and provide those services, and it makes it a lot easier for us to say, well, the reason they can do all that is because they're paying for it. So.
And the reason I ask is just for people that don't know anything about the assessment and what the downtown improvement district is for, can understand what it's for. So, thank you.
Definitely enhanced services, and Nancy has run, I don't know how many special improvement districts at this point, but a lot. And she will tell you that from a frugalness perspective, we probably have the most frugal special improvement district that she's ever been part of.
For a city this size.
Yeah. I can tell you, I remember many years ago, this used to be a contentious issue, and there were people that would show up and say, this is horrible, I don't want to pay this $14 a year, for what I get. And we don't hear people say that anymore because, I pay, I own a couple properties downtown and I pay this assessment. So Mr. Smith might need to tell me if I have a conflict. but it's a pretty happy group of campers right now. Vice Mayor.
And I would like just to add to commend that the work that DMA, Nancy and her team have done since she's come on board is night and day from any experience we've had in downtown before. We have business owners and property owners working together in the conversation to bring up downtown, and we've all seen so much prosper because of those relationships and those activities that are really putting downtown Mesa on the map. So thank you for the work, and it's really making a difference. And it's not just downtown, it's the identity for our city, and I appreciate the work that you do. Second, can I go on the next item?
Please.
Okay, since Jeff is here, can you, if we're done, other council members, I wanted to ask for a quick review on item 6C, the grid amendment to the development agreement. Just a quick review.
Just a quick overview of the development agreement?
So they're all aware, I get lots of questions all the time about the status of that project and where we are and what changes are being made.
Sure. Mayor, Vice Mayor Duff, the significant change that we are making with this amendment, first of all, the amendment to the development agreement, the significant change is to extend compliance dates for the completion of construction for the phases that have begun and are yet to begin, to extend those so that the project is back into compliance with its completion dates. With that, though, is a very significant change to include a purchase option that would allow the developer to purchase the property and the air rights above the garage immediately following completion of the construction. Previously, the agreement was that that purchase option wouldn't be available until 21 years down the road of leasing the property from us. So we have already established a sale price of $7 million with the developer, and at the end of their completion of their construction, they will enter into a purchase option with us, and we will then sell the property and the air rights, and we wouldn't have to have a 99-year lease with the developer. So all in all, we find this to be an extremely good solution to what was a challenge from the developer's perspective of solving that financial issues that they had due to COVID. The other changes included a minor modification to the licensing agreement for the parking spaces to align with the construction schedule. So since we are delayed essentially 2 years at this point, we had a license agreement that said they had to start licensing parking spaces from us while they'd still be under construction. So we adjusted the dates so that they aren't actually licensing parking until they need parking from us. Those are the major changes. There's several minor changes, but those are the major deal point changes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, if I could just add to what Jeff said too, just sort of structurally and conceptually, the change on the option to say that they can purchase it after completion of construction of all the minimum improvements is really similar to the concept though that was initially adopted by council when we came with the development agreement. The reason why this deal is structured the way it is as a lease, a long-term lease, was to ensure the completion of the project, right? As opposed to selling the property, right? Because developers normally want to buy the property, and then there's different mechanisms we try to utilize to ensure completion of the project. In the past, we've used deeds with reverters or restrictions. Those have become very difficult to use sometimes because of financing on deeds with reverters, and so they become less really available to use. And so we restructured this deal as a long-term lease with an option to purchase, and that was always the idea. And the reason why it was a lease was to ensure completion of the project. So the idea that we're changing the option to have sort of what I'll call an initial option and then a subsequent option really still is conceptually the same with the overall concept that we always wanted was the lease was to ensure completion of the project.
But Jeff, now we've also inserted the idea that it's not about forcing the completion, but it's about being able to, if it doesn't proceed, what options do we have?
Sure.
This is important because I don't want to end up where we are today. The city's not going to take on the ability to go finish a building that it didn't start, that it doesn't have the designs for, that didn't hire the contractor. That won't work. So we've got to go the other way.
So we have the amendment also includes provisions where the developer will either have to post a letter of credit or place a certain amount of money into an escrow account in favor of the city, both instruments in favor of the city. So should the project ever come out of compliance with our agreements and construction stops and the lenders do not step in and take over to finish the project, the city has the funds available needed to restore the property to its original condition.
Which means demolish, scrape, and go back to where we were. Because we're not going to complete the project. We're not going to take that liability.
Thank you.
I have a question on that. So understanding a little bit of the construction components, I mean, they're going to drill through the garage floors down into the earth. And obviously, I mean, there's going to be maybe some integrity issues with the garage, maybe through design. If it never finishes, let's say Mr. Wall never finishes this. Worst case scenario, I hope there's enough monies in there to cover any of the demolition.
Well, right now, that would be a concern. Our priority would be getting our street back and getting a parking lot. We'll deal with the parking garage.
Well, but
So, Councilmember Freeman, one thing that I didn't mention that I think is important to address that concern, we have also built in provisions in this amendment that will not allow the developer to move on to the next phase of construction, which is the garage and building above the garage, until they have achieved a certain level of completion with the phase that they're currently under, as well as completing some of the roadway improvements. It's to give us this certain level of confidence that the project is going to be able to complete. In addition to that, we have actually specifically talked about the structural enhancements that have to happen to the garage. We used to call them the skewers. So the additional steel beams or whatever that have to go in there to be able to support the 4 stories above. Those are all being designed and constructed with structural engineering that will go through our permitting system. We honestly, if we have to restore the site to its original condition, I think our recommendation, at least my recommendation, would be that we do not remove those structural enhancements, because it has improved the value of our garage and has given us the ability to then go and seek out another opportunity for somebody that might want to build above.
Yeah. Just our focus has been get the street back, get our parking back next to Benedictine, and then that's really been our priority.
okay, very good. Or you can just add more floors, garage floors.
Well, that's true.
But I want to be very clear. Mr. Wall has worked very hard on this whole team, and Jeff as well. And I support this project. This has been in the queue for a number of years, and we've seen it, you know, the rise and fall and the resurrection again. So I appreciate that happening, because it's very much needed in our downtown area. So thank you to all.
Council, other questions regarding our December 8th meeting? Mr. Thompson?
I have a question on item 13. With our fluctuations in electric that we saw, and I'm guessing with the natural gas, because of all the issues that were happening in Texas over this past winter, would it be worth, and I see Frank's here, so maybe Frank can answer this, would it be worth to start talking about now entering into some long-term contracts to hedge our bets against price increases? I know that we've had this discussion in previous councils.
We've had that conversation. Go ahead, Frank.
Mayor, Council, Frank McCray with the Energy Resource Department, and Tony Cadorn is with me as well, who's managing all of our energy supply and acquisition. So, Councilmember Thompson, we're constantly looking into the markets, both the short-term markets as well as the long-term markets. One of the things we've done on the electric side is we've preserved the ability to enter into long-term contracts with renewable providers, which is really the way to contract for renewable. And in order to do that, we've limited ourselves to our normal conventional resource contracts to a shorter term. So we're transitioning from looking at conventional resources in our power supply contracts to longer term renewable contracts. But the key component that's going to allow us to control our costs over time is the investment in generation assets within our electric service area, in facilities like high-efficiency natural gas-fired generators, as well as natural gas-fired generators for microgrids, which we're intimately pursuing and effectively pursuing. In terms of the gas contracts on a long-term basis, we have to find a willing seller through our procurement process to sell us gas on a long-term basis. And when we've gone to the markets recently for those types of contracts, we didn't get many bites on that. So right now, the market is such that they're looking for more short-term opportunities, and the longer-term ones are few and far between. And if they are, they're going to put a risk premium on selling gas at too low of a level based upon where the market goes. So I'll let Tony, and Tom Schreiber's also here. He's works with Tony on the energy supply side. So anything to add or elaborate on, Tony, please do so.
I just echo what Frank said. So just looking at the electric portfolio, we have, like we've said, about 20% hydro. Those are 25-year contracts, so those are fairly long-term. Now with the drought at record levels, those are going to be a challenge. And as the rivers are running less and less, Western's actually going out and buying on the market. So like Frank said, internal generation, that's going to be a long-lived asset. It's going to be a 20-year, 25-year generator that will be able to run and kind of stabilize power prices as a base load. And then the renewable contracts, like Frank said, those are all 20 to 25-year contracts as well. So if you add those together, between the generator, the hydro, and solar, within 5 to 10 years, we could be looking at maybe 50 to 60% of our contracts are long-term hedged. And as far as on the gas, I'd echo that as well. We are very involved with the American Public Gas Association. I'm the chair of the supply committee there. And we are looking at what's called a municipal prepaid deal. We're always looking at those. Those are very long-term gas deals compared to what we're usually participating in. For sometimes it's a more substantial discount. They're a very heavy legal lift, so it's something that we really have to focus on and work on. But we're definitely looking for those long-term deals.
Would it make more sense right now on the electric side to look more at the conventional and less at the renewable, since the technology's not quite there on the renewable side, especially when we're talking about with the drought and the hydro potentially going completely away for Arizona? Would it make more sense to start maybe looking the other direction and go back to more of the conventional side versus the renewables at this point? I'm trying to think long-term to decrease our cost on the consumer at the end of the day.
Most of the conventional resources looking forward and the ones that are currently in the market are natural gas fired. So any volatility in terms of supply and price on the natural gas side are going to flow through to those natural gas prices. So while we are proposing to invest in natural gas fired resources, we will be able to hedge and enter into long-term agreements to stabilize those costs or manage those gas supply contracts. In reality, the costs that we're seeing, and Tony can verify this, but the costs that we're seeing in response to our RFPs for long-term solar agreements are very, very low in cost compared to conventional resources currently. So it's just a matter of finding a project that is viable, that's going to be there, it's going to be willing to agree to our terms and conditions and go through our procurement processes. We do have authorization from the council for the city manager to sign an agreement for long-term solar resources. And the prices that we're talking in there are very advantageous compared to conventional resources.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we can try to hedge our bets against a 200% increase in electric rates again.
That's definitely our goal, and we believe that it's got to be a multifaceted resource portfolio. If it's just long-term hedged electric price contracts, we're going to pay a risk premium for a supplier to be willing to enter into a fixed price contract or a price with fixed escalation over the long term. We think there's a better approach is by diversifying that resource mix. We've done that for the last 18 years, and I think we've shared with you how that's allowed us to dramatically reduce our costs over time and stabilize our rates. But that market's different now. That market that we relied upon to do that for the last 17 years is no longer there. So it's time to shift, bring in our own generation assets, find ways to fuel them economically, use renewable gas when it's available and at what price, and then we can diversify our portfolio and stabilize our cost and our services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council. Any other questions on our December 8th agenda? Vice Mayor.
I have a couple. Item 5E about the street sweepers, the contract for the, and I've already sent an email to RJ and received some information. My questions to him were about the options for electric street sweepers, and he has informed me these are diesel. And as far as he's aware, there's only like one on the market that's electric. I'm aware of some other cities ordering electric. I realize they're more expensive, but there are maintenance costs also to consider, and our commitment to our climate action plan, how can, as we buy and go into contracts, I would like to be in alignment to reaching our goals. And so I just want to have a conversation about that, the life expectation of a sweeper, how long is that commitment for? We purchased one in May and we have two now, so we were talking about three in this last year. So a conversation about sustainability.
Mayor or Vice Mayor, a street sweeper, I'll have to verify this, so I'll get back to you if I'm incorrect, or the whole council, but probably 10 years is the life of a street sweeper. It's pretty heavy use, given the material that we're picking up off the streets. As you noted, we are aware that there's at least one heavy-duty electric sweeper on the market. Several cities have purchased those, at least one. I was reading a couple articles this morning around the country, LA, Denver, New York, were some larger cities that have acquired at least one electric sweeper. What I'd like to do is have the opportunity to talk with folks in those cities, and have our staff reach out to them and see what their experience has been. The other thing we have to consider is infrastructure. I know I mentioned that in my response to you, and that's the ability to charge, a large vehicle. We currently do not have that capacity, in particular at our east location, off of University and Power. But I know, I talked to Scott Boucher yesterday from environmental management and sustainability, and his staff is working, on a larger plan. So we're certainly supportive of looking at alternative vehicles, not just for the heavy equipment, that's certainly, one path, but also for the light vehicles that we use as well. So we are committed to support the city's climate action plan, and it's something that we really do want to take a look. So I'd like to move forward with these purchases, but for next year, when we're buying again, hopefully we have more information, and that's a possibility that we can pursue.
So the challenge here is that the numbers I saw, the electric sweepers are twice as much as these sweepers, and yet we need the sweepers to comply with the air quality mandates that we're under. So it's kind of, we have to be careful. I think we'll transition. I think we're going to transition. We have several orders out for other items in our fleet for electric, but they're just backed up and we just can't get them. And so I think we can look at this kind of like we did the fire pumper, but again, the fire pumper was twice as much as other pumpers. So we're I think we need to position ourselves to participate in this, but at the same time, we don't want to have a lack of sweepers, because then that'll put us behind in complying with the clean air.
Correct, and one of these sweepers is grant funded through MAG to meet our air quality requirements with federal funding. The other is with local funding. But Mr. Brady is correct, the research I've seen shows that we're looking at twice the cost for a suitable or comparable electric vehicle.
Right, I think a complete analysis needs to be done, just because electric vehicles usually don't have the maintenance costs. I know that sweepers, as you had stated, they go through, there's a lot of demand, and they require a lot of service, and I don't know if that's because it is a fossil fuel type of engine, or is it just because of the debris on the streets that create a high level of service needed?
Sure, and I'd like to, Vice Mayor, I'd like to work with our fleet staff, because obviously they're maintaining our equipment as well, as we do our outreach to the cities that have these vehicles, to get a sense of their experience and what costs they have versus traditional diesel field sweeper.
How big is our fleet of sweepers?
Oh, sure, you had to ask me that question.
Just
Probably about a dozen.
A dozen? Okay.
Yeah.
We have to sweep every street.
We sweep, we have a kind of a hybrid model for sweeping. We actually contract for our arterial streets, but the local streets, we try to sweep on a 4-week cycle.
Yeah, so it's pretty active, so you think you have to have a lot of sweepers out there on the streets all the time. And I would think that based on my conversations with Fleet, it's typically all the hydraulics and the movement, cleaning that out is where they spend a lot of their maintenance issues on.
If we were to invest in electric infrastructure, I would suggest we do it at the East Mesa Service Center. And when we get to that point, just because of how much growth we're seeing, the center of the city, as you all know, has shifted somewhat. But we'll continue to explore this.
Are the sweepers located in different areas, in different locations, or do you have?
Transportation has 2 yards. One is the West Mesa Service Center, which is 6th Street and Mesa Drive. And then the other site we have is at Power and University. And all but one of our sweepers is out east because that's where the team is.
Yeah, so within the transportation fleet, you need the infrastructure for electric beyond
Correct.
sweepers, so.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's something, I think the biggest holdup right now is the analysis and the timeline. And we approved one in May, we're doing 2 more today. So that's 3, a quarter of the fleet being replaced. So before our next purchase, I would love it if we could look at what the electric sweepers and what the experience of other cities, the maintenance costs. And at some point, I know maybe through our climate action plan and our job order contracts that we can give points for meeting our sustainability goals as part of the analysis of what our best choices are for our city. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Thompson.
Before you, mine's not on this, it's on the actual study session. It's on the study session piece. If we can jump on over to that real quick.
Which item?
It's on this.
Let's finish our discussion of
Okay.
the December 8th agenda, and then we'll get on to that study session agenda. Council, any other questions regarding December 8th's council meeting?
I do have one more.
Yes, go ahead.
Item 9B, the resolution of the development agreement on a piece of property at East Elliott Road and Signal Butte Road, prohibiting certain land uses. Is this regarding the rail project, or is this?
Not this one.
What is the
This
prohibiting?
is Signal Butte and Elliott's. It's just making sure we have the right mix of retail and industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Elliott, so it's
Okay.
not close to the rail at all. This is across the street from Fire Station, Kitty Court, or
And Mayor Council, this is across the street from Apple. It's in the Elliott Road Tech Corridor, so the reason for restricting the use is because of the goals that we want to achieve in the tech corridor. We want to make sure that the uses that are going to go into that development is consistent with the goals for the Elliott Road Tech Corridor. So one of the major restrictions is to limit the amount of storage and warehousing uses so we don't have logistic companies basically populating that area of the city.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, December 8th meeting, last call.
Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Freeman.
Okay, so we're on it, and you talked about dust, Vice Mayor, but I want to appreciate our fire exhaust systems. We have over 400 plus of our personnel in fire stations, and having these gas removal systems in our stations are critically important to help with the health of our firefighters. So I appreciate this coming forward, and I see there's a lot of grant funding for this to keep our firefighters safe. And maybe we won't need these in the future if we get all electric vehicles. But until then, we do need them for the safety and health of our fire department. So I appreciate this coming forward and staff working on this.
Maybe we can get non-smoke fires too, so for when the trucks come in. No, I'm just kidding. All right, anything else on December 8th's agenda? All right, thank you very much. We will now move on to agenda item 4A for this meeting. That's to take action on appointments to various boards. Is there a motion to do that? Thank you, Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that passes unanimously. Item 5A is approval of board minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Yes, Mr. Thompson? Okay.
In the meeting minutes on item 6, it talks about how Ryan showed the crash data and how it originates, and he talks about how there's a 5 to 6 month lag between getting the reports back from ADOT and then using our data management system to view the report when it's uploaded from PD. Is that data that you guys can get to at any point in time, or is that a one-time snapshot and then now you have to wait another 5 to 6 months for a report to come back from ADOT?
Mayor, Councilmember Thompson, I'll have to get back to you on exactly how the process works. I know that we get the bulk of our crash data from ADOT because that's where the reports are ultimately filed and maintained. You know, in terms of one-off requests, we work very closely with the police department and the traffic unit. So, I'd have to find out exactly how that works.
I just want to make sure that if you need the data instead of waiting for that 5 to 6 month lag, that somehow we figure out a way to get you that information real time or as quickly as possible from PD, whether it's looping you in on traffic reports or accidents or what have you, just to make sure that you're getting the most.
One of the things I think will help, Councilmember, is that Council approved the new position in the current fiscal year's budget that we are advertising for, which is a shared traffic analyst. And so I think that position we'll be able to help because they're going to go through the police background process, frankly. They'll have access to information that we don't necessarily have immediate access to on a day-to-day basis. I don't know whether it'll have to be scrubbed or not, but I think by sharing that position, that will certainly bolster our ability to see and look at crash data pretty quickly.
Okay, and that was my end question was, what can we do to make sure that you're getting that information quickly and not waiting for that 5 to 6 month lag?
I think that was one of the reasons that there were other reasons, but I think it was one of the reasons to have a shared position so they could have the clearance and access in PD, but they could also be working in transportation on finding solutions, right? You know, traffic solutions, or if there's trends or analysis that are showing up, then they have both sides of the information.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
The person will actually be housed at our building, but also spend a good amount of time over at PD as well. So that's what we call it, a shared.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Council, so agenda item 5A, is there a motion to approve those minutes? Thank you, Mr. Freeman, second by Ms. Spilsbury. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that passes unanimously. Agenda item 6 is meetings and conferences attended. Council, anything you'd like to share with us? Mr. Thompson.
I'll just say that yesterday, Monday and Tuesday, I was in Yuma with Nick from Economic Development and with the Mesa Industry and Defense Council, so the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, Sally, Boeing, and a lot of other industries from Mesa. Went to Yuma Proving Grounds and met with the new colonel out there and did a tour of the Yuma Proving Grounds. So it's always exciting to see them testing things that blow up and blowing things up, and for the betterment of our nation's safety. So very exciting opportunity for myself as well as I think for economic development and the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Spilsbury.
Last Tuesday, I was able to help at the United Food Bank food distribution event for Thanksgiving. Over 1,500 families received food, and they will also be doing another one on December 22nd, right before Christmas, as well at our convention center. And so I just wanted to thank everyone that helped with that. I'd love to see the cooperation between all these different groups coming together. There were several companies that take the day off just to come and serve at that event, so it's a really neat thing. Last Friday, after our tree lighting ceremony, which was great, we had a fun event at the Mesa Arts Center, the mayor's live podcast event. It was a treat for all of us that were there. I laughed for, how long was it, an hour and a half? I don't know. I laughed the entire time. It was great. Super fun event. And then yesterday, we were invited, the mayor and I were invited to the Elks Lodge 2656 in my district by the chamber to have a little Java with Giles is what they call it, so that was fun as well. So thank you to all who participated.
Thank you for supporting those events, Julie. I appreciate it. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, we've had a little bit of time since Thanksgiving, but the Saturday before Thanksgiving, I was in Councilmember Freeman's district doing some tree planting in Whitman Park. And he was out there and you attended as well. And that was concluding the planting of was it 100 trees?
50 trees in that park.
50
Yeah.
trees, but
Yeah.
overall, I think between all the
Over
different
100
parks.
trees.
Over 100 trees in Mesa Parks, and that was supplied by a grant by Bank of America to the Arizona Sustainability Alliance within, for parks within 2 miles of the Rio Salado Park River, part of the Rio Reimagined project for underserved neighborhoods. And so it's part of the revitalization and sustainability efforts along the Rio Salado. And I appreciate all their work. It was fantastic. And I'm sure you'll mention...
Barbecue.
Yeah, there we go. And I also wanted to note that I participated in a video for the City of Mesa's Green Business Program that's hosted by Local First, and we awarded 101 Gallery in downtown Mesa for their, they gained their certification. So I want to congratulate them and also recognize the other businesses that have gained their certification, the Nile and Downtown Stardust, which was the first, which is in Councilmember Heredia's district, and Yvonne Martinez Photography, and thank them all and look forward to more businesses getting their green business certification. And I'll go ahead and mention it, but yesterday it was announced the Man and Woman of the Year were selected. I would like to congratulate Vern Mathern for the Man of the Year. He's done a tremendous amount of work for many years in our community. And someone we know very well, Dawn Giles, is the Woman of the Year, and wanted to congratulate her as well for all the work that she does in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree.
Well, I'm waiting for your response, Mayor.
No, I'm a big fan. I thought
Well, you better be.
Vern is what I was saying.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, I hope Don's not watching.
No, yeah, that is a wonderful event and lots of great service. I mean, we could give a lot of those awards away to the people in this room. So that's what we love about Mesa, is it's a great combination of people that need help and people who are anxiously involved in providing that help. So thank you for that recognition. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you. We did have a barbecue at the Mesa Historical Museum. It turned out really well. Vice Mayor, Mayor. I met this really bad guy wearing a felt black hat. His name's David Luna. And he showed up.
He had a cowboy hat.
I know, he looked really good. I said, you need to wear that to more council meetings. I know people kind of complain that we banter here at the dais or study session, but this is the time to do it. But I appreciate all those that helped. There was a lot of work, and we had a great barbecue and a great turnout. Mr. Brady was there and his wife. Who else did we miss?
Nana was there?
Nana? Oh, yeah, Nana came.
He didn't have a cowboy hat on.
I know. I told him we need a giddy wood. But,
I want to see Nana in a cowboy hat.
yeah.
Did you not notice me because I didn't have a cowboy hat on?
That's right. I think Councilmember Spilsbury came. Thank you. We had a great turnout from council. And the museum is kind of a secret here in Mesa. You need to come down to the Mesa Historical Museum. There's a lot of information there historically, so we really appreciate that. You want to say something?
Well, they have an arts and craft fair this Saturday at
That's
the
true.
Historical Museum. So.
And they've had a music festival on the last 3 Sundays that turned out really great. So
Yeah.
appreciate all the help.
I didn't get mentioned because I didn't wear my hat either, I guess, but it is thank you. It's a great, with all the out-of-town visitors here during the wintertime, that we need to be pointing out that that's a great place to go.
Well, I want to point out you did bring the future Woman of the Year to the barbecue.
I think more and more I'm going to become the sidekick, so that's good to know. Yes, Mr. Heredia.
Real quick, as board chair of Valley Metro, we had a signing ceremony for an extension of light rail to Metro Center in Phoenix, where we had the FTA administrator, Pete Buttigieg, the Department of Transportation Secretary, a couple other dignitaries, senators from Arizona come in. And then they were also at Mesa Community College, where Mayor attended, talking about supply chain management and the work being done there. So I think that was an important discussion as far as how we, on the light rail, how we are looking at extending options for folks to utilize light rail and take them to places that will be good for them to travel, and then also the supply chain issues that we are currently dealing and having those conversations with industry here locally was important. And thanks to the both senators for being here about a week and a half ago. So, and then also just want to announce we're doing our District 3 Toy Drive initiative that helps Banner Children's Hospital on Dobson in Southern fill up their toy chests every year. So if folks want to donate, they can contact our office or go to Dobson Ranch Golf Course. They have boxes there to collect toys for the hospital this year.
Great. Thank you for keeping that event alive. That's very important to the Children's Hospital. Okay, Council, any other events you'd like to talk about? If not, Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of future meetings look like? Okay. That concludes the items on this agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Pillsbury. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're adjourned, and we'll reconvene upstairs for the formal council meeting.